Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Half and Half this morning. Saturday morning, pretty snowy day outside in January. I grew up in Texas, so I never saw snow until I was like 26, I think, and I was in Boulder, Colorado. So I'm always very excited when I see snow or get to be in snow. So I just think we have a lovely backdrop here. And here's Andy, the cat. Um, yeah, he's our little kitten. He keeps growing up. I have a few toys behind me, so I can get him off the screen if I need to. But he seems to enjoy coming to these broadcasts. So yeah. So thinking about what we did last week and have done for a couple weeks, working on balance. I think that's pretty fun and interesting to play with. So last week we talked about oblique muscles and your center of gravity in your pelvis. So just to review a little bit of that, your pelvis is basically your center of mass, the idea of your center of gravity being in your pelvis, where your weight is balanced above and below, to the right, to the left, and to the front and back, like that would be your center. Um, and that's in slightly different places for people, but it basically is always in your pelvis, somewhere in that area. So thinking about where your pelvis is and how it centers over your one foot or over both feet, um, or if you're on your hands, then it would be how it centers over your hands. But wherever that is giving you more control over yeah, how to maintain your balance. So it's a great image to work with, and knowing where your pelvis is and how everything's orienting around your pelvis is often really helpful in balancing. And then especially when you're going to one leg, the oblique muscles can often be really, really helpful to help you stabilize through your side body and hold your torso together. Um, yeah, to help you stand and feel centered and balanced. So we'll talk about a little bit of that again. We'll get up to standing in a little bit, but let's start on your hands and knees, and play a little bit with some one-sided work on your hands and knees, which I always really like. So I'm actually going to face this way, which feels a little rude because when we get the side camera on, it means you'll see my backside, but you'll be able to see my pelvis. So that's why I'm setting myself up that way. So hands are right under your shoulders and knees right under your hips. And then, here you are. Probably your pelvis is centered between your two legs, right? But that's the first thing we're thinking about, not over to one side or over to the other side. And actually, sometimes it's really useful to feel like the wrong thing or the thing you're trying not to do. So do a little sway side to side in your pelvis. Feel what it's like as it moves over to the left. Feel what it's like as it moves over to the right. Probably as you do that, your shoulders are also moving from one hand to the other, but they might not be. Sometimes people just move their pelvis, right? So you could try both those things. What's it like to just kind of like wag your tail side to side in the pelvis? What's it like for the whole body to shift over to one side and over to the other? And even that starts to um, contact the obliques a little bit. And then see if you can feel centered between your two hands, centered between your two legs, and then a little bit of tone in your abdominal muscles. So a little lift in your lower belly, a feeling of drawing in up a little higher where the lower ribs are, drawing all that in. And then do even more of a bend in the elbows. Bend, halfway down. And as you do that, I'm going to guess you could feel your hands spread out a little more on the floor. So take that feeling and then try to keep a sense of your hands really pushing as your elbows come to 95% straight. Tiny little bit of bend in the elbow, but mostly straight. And take that again. Bend your elbows. See if you can feel more of your hand on the floor, even down to your thumbs and your fingers. And then starting to slowly straighten your elbows to about 95%, keeping the hands really connected. One more time. This time we're going to see if you can feel the ribs drawing together at the same time. So hands spread out, starting to extend your elbows and drawing your ribs together, drawing your upper abdominals on. Now, hopefully that feels pretty solid. Take a little bit of back and forth with your head, like you're doing a big nod of your head, like you were a Muppet. You know how their heads go way, way back? Like let your head go way back and way forward. And then see if you can feel head in line with the rest of the spine, not hanging too far down, not tipping your head way up. If you were standing, your head would just be right in line with the rest of your spine. So now we get to the pelvis, that feeling in the low belly. Can you keep your pelvis mostly still as you reach your right leg back? Now, probably your pelvis is going to go a little to the left, and that's okay, but keep it mostly still. And just reach your right leg back. Toes are still on the floor, but your knees come off the floor. And then bring your knee back in and feel how your weight really centers over the two legs again. Find it all again. Set up your upper body, your head, your ribs, your belly. And then feel the left leg slide back. Pelvis probably shifts a little to the right, but you're going to keep it mostly in place. And then bring it back in. And play with that a couple times. So often we do this where the leg lifts off the floor. You're not going to do that today. And that's how you get better feedback about what's going on with your pelvis side to side. So just for now, that's always nice. If the leg comes up, you have other forces on the pelvis besides just that side to side force. So in order to feel the side to side feeling, keeping your foot down is helpful. Now you might be able to feel as your right leg goes back, your right hand might feel like it has more weight, that it pushes a little more. So that kind of makes sense, right? You took the right leg off, so now you've got to work a little harder somewhere else. When the left leg goes back, the left hand pushes a little more. So especially when we try to hold the pelvis still, you're definitely going to feel some things like that. So the next time the right leg goes back, keep it there. And then take the left hand off and reach the left fingers forward. So again, fingers are still on the floor. You're just doing a little reach out. There's no weight in your fingers. Sometimes it makes it even easier to feel centered once you take that hand away. Bring it back in. And let's do the same thing with the other side. Left leg reaches back, right fingers reach forward. This is that cross lateral movement or contralateral movement, opposite arm and leg feeling. That's how we walk. That's how we move pretty naturally, with the opposite arm and leg moving together. And that's kind of a natural way we make balance, is to counterbalance. And then after you've done the left leg and right arm, take some weight off your wrist, come back. And then coming up to center. And we'll come back on your back. And let's do some 100 just to get the abdominals working a little more. But we're still going to get this sense of your pelvis, of your center of gravity. So take a moment with your knees bent and your feet flat. Feel like you could relax in your lower back and your hips. Those are just places that get tight a lot. So take a moment, let them settle. And then we just did this upper body work, so maybe take a moment, let your shoulders and arms relax a little. And feel your breath. Hands come behind your head. And as you exhale, bring your head up, looking into your belly. So then same thing. Now here, sometimes the pelvis kind of rocks, like it tips over to one side or it tips over to the other side or kind of tucks in or arches. Any of those movements in the pelvis sometimes just happen when your head comes up. So come back down. Feel your pelvis centered and weighted, just kind of relaxed there. And then observe as your head comes up. If you keep a little tone in your belly, can you keep your pelvis still as the head comes up a little higher? And then coming back down. And a couple more times, keeping the pelvis still as your head comes up. And just take a look at it. Sometimes it's helpful to see. Sometimes you don't feel it move, but it's actually lifted up a little. And then exhale, coming up one more time. Okay, so I think we did this last week, but we're going to take this oblique version where we do one hand at a time. So hands are behind your head. Let's bring your legs up and bring them together in tabletop. And then you keep your right hand behind your head. Just reach your left arm forward and pumping, inhaling 5. Pelvis stays really grounded. And this just puts a little more emphasis on that left oblique. Both hands behind your head, right arm reaches forward, and inhale. So now that right oblique, a little more emphasized. And then coming back down. So I realized I didn't really define the obliques very much. I think a lot of people might know this, but some of you might not have thought about it before or know exactly where they are. But the oblique muscles are basically along the sides of your body. They're all the way on the side and then a little in the on the front of the body, but they don't go all the way to the center of the body. They go just towards this side body feeling. So things that organize your ribs and your pelvis on the side body, that's your obliques. You have an internal and an external, and the fibers just run in 2 different directions. And then a lot of things that are kind of one-sided, having to stabilize the pelvis, are going to have to do with those oblique muscles. So when you're thinking about what you're feeling or observing, that's the area that we're looking at, we're talking about. So we're going to go into single leg circles. One knee in. Let's go right leg in, holding the back of your thigh. And head down. And so sometimes what happens when your leg comes in is that your hips, hip bone, and ribs get closer together. And we'll talk about shortening your waist, that it's the hip kind of pulls up and you get a little less distance between your ribs and your pelvis on one side. And then maybe on the other side, it's actually gotten longer. So as you bring your leg up, keep the obliques long, keep space between your ribs and your pelvis. See what that feels like. You might not bring your leg quite as close. That's okay. You just have to be able to get your hands behind there. It doesn't have to be super close. And then we'll start the up and down with your leg. Really aware of keeping that long right oblique. And then one more time, the leg goes up and you hold it there. Knee could be a little bit bent. Leg that's on the floor, that's your left leg. Flex that foot. And then see if you can imagine that as you reach your left leg forward through your heel or through your foot, there's this opposite flow of energy or awareness or tone coming into the left obliques, keeping the left pelvis where it is, keeping the ribs where they are, keeping all this really steady. And then as you take your right leg across to the left side stays really stable as you go down and especially as you open, keeping all this really steady, using the muscles on the side of the body and on the front side portion of the body. Inhale over to the left, exhale around and up. So the leg is secondary. Sometimes we go, I need to move my leg really far, I need to stretch my leg. That's fine, but that's not what we're doing today. The leg goes a little ways so that I focus on the obliques, so that I focus on the steadiness on my left side. Take it the other direction, same thing. Don't go too far. Keep your ribs and your pelvis in place. Keep your leg in place. Left leg in place. A couple more. And then relax back down and rest. And I actually just get a little bit of work in that right hip and right thigh, and it's just a little different work around there. That's not always bad. Sometimes it grips too much in your right hip, but also it doesn't have to be totally relaxed in the right hip either. It's kind of a balanced work. Okay, so now we take the other leg in, and as I bring the left leg in, I don't want to shorten in the left waist. So both legs are down. I feel even length on both sides. My left leg comes in and I keep that length and grab the leg and up and down. One more time up. So right leg is on the floor. That leg's straight. It's flexed, just like I was standing up, right? My foot would be a little flexed if I was standing up on this leg. I think about the right obliques, ribs, pelvis, side body, connecting all the way through my foot, and my foot connecting all the way back to my obliques on the right side. Now my left leg can move because I'm so steady on that right side. Inhale over to the right, exhale around and up. One more this way. Then reverse it, opening, not letting your ribs move, not letting your pelvis move, not letting your foot turn in or out or slide out. What if you were standing up on your right foot trying to do this movement? You'd want those right obliques to stay on and your pelvis to stay steady. And then relaxing everything down. Bend your knees in and come up to standing. Okay. So there's one thing I love about the beginning Pilates exercises is that everything you learn in the basic exercises, it just applies to everything you do from now on to the most advanced exercises or to other things. Those basic exercises really cover a lot of um, just fundamental concepts. And so one thing I think about that single leg circles exercise we just did is there's this focus on, okay, right leg is steady, right pelvis is steady, the obliques are on. That's my kind of standing balance leg. And what I didn't talk about as much, but we have talked about before, is if I keep all this steady, then I have to be able to actually move in my hip joint. And I can't get too locked up in the hip joint of that leg that's working. And so when you get up to standing, right, if we translate that up to standing, if this hip is really locked up, then as I move my leg, I have to move my pelvis, right? And all this stuff happens here. If this stays really steady, I can actually move in the hip joint. My pelvis doesn't have to move. And this happens to people a lot when they start doing, some of this exercises we were doing last week and we're going to get back into. If I don't actually have movement in my hip, then my pelvis is going to go with my leg, my center goes off, and I lose my balance, right? Or I do some sort of counterbalance, right? And all that kind of stuff happens. So it's very exciting. I love this stuff. So part of the foundational side, part of the point of finding that foundation is so that I can let my hip release and move. Part of the point of letting my hip release and move is so I have a better foundation. So that's just a thought. Now we're going to do one more thing on your side. So let's go onto on the mat. Let's go onto your left side. Feet a little forward and pelvis, torso a little back. Now your head could be down or it could be up. Actually, let's do it down. I think it's a little clearer down for this. So as I go down, again, I want equal length on both the top and bottom obliques. I don't want to pull and shorten that top oblique. So I want to reach that. The more I reach that, the more I get a little lift on the underneath side. Both obliques are working. One leg comes up, and let's start just with little circles. So I'm going to leave my pelvis in place. I'm using my obliques to do it. And then I'm getting some movement in my hip joint. I don't want my pelvis to move around as my leg moves, right? That's going to be not so great when I stand up. Just moving around in the hip joint. And then reverse it. And then relax it. Maybe you start to feel your outer hip too. Great, right? Obliques are good, but also we need some work in these outer glutes and outer hip muscles. Let's do that same thing again. Bring the leg slightly up, find your obliques, circle around. Don't let the pelvis tip forward and back. Just move the leg. Then reverse it. And then rest. We're going to go right to the other side. So all the way down on your arm, feet are a little forward, torso is lined up against the back edge of the mat. Not collapsed and short here, but reach that long. Underneath side comes up a little bit. I have to work the underneath obliques. I steady with the top obliques and my leg comes a little up. Not letting your pelvis move, just moving in the hip joint. Then reverse it. And then rest. Relax those muscles for a moment. Same thing again. Find your waist, hold your pelvis, circle your leg around. and then reverse it. And then rest that. Okay, so let's work up to standing. Coming into a little forward bend here, and rolling up. So sometimes people tell me stories that they're falling over in their house. But this might be happening. Sometimes it happens to me. But please feel free to grab onto something to do balance work. It's super helpful. You're looking at strengthening muscles, right? And if it feels like it's really helpful for you to have your hand on something, have your hand on something. Am I over here? Scott's telling me I should talk over here. Yeah, if that works, the side you're going to stand on, that's where you want to put your hand to give you some balance so this leg can move a little more, right? Doesn't mean you should never wobble, right? Like, that's okay. If you're a little wobbly, that's okay. But if it feels like it's too much and your foot's all over the place, you're not getting the concept, then it's nice to just put your hand on a wall. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. We're going to play with that a little bit. So shifting your weight onto your left foot. When you shift your weight onto your left foot, your right leg can come forward. Now, come back to both feet, right? So early on, we started with me saying, leave your pelvis in place and move your leg. But now we're standing up and we don't have our hands on the floor, right? So you've got to move your pelvis. So feel how your pelvis moves over a little bit. And then you can stand on the left leg and that right leg can come out. Now let's try foot on the floor, just kind of easy leg. Move it out to the side, foot still on the floor. There are those muscles we just did in the side kicks, right, along the outer hip. And then notice if your pelvis moved, right? Can you keep your pelvis straight forward? Bring it back to the front. Pelvis is forward, weight is over your left foot. Shoulders are staying in place. Move it to the side. Move it forward. Now, maybe you do that same thing with the foot off the floor. Or maybe you leave it on the floor. It's up to you. Two more. And if you're really paying close attention, you might feel that your pelvis goes even more to the left for your leg to go to the side. Just a little more counterbalance there, right? When the weight's in front of me, I don't have to travel quite so far. When my leg goes to the side, I need to counterbalance just a little bit more. My pelvis moves a tiny, tiny bit more over. And then come back in. Yep, I'm feeling these muscles too. So let's see what the other side's like. So I'm going to stand on my right leg, which means I shift my weight slightly over. My pelvis goes slightly over to center over my right foot. I want to keep my shoulders and ribs moving too. Left foot can go forward. Now, let's do a little check-in. So your leg goes to the side, leave your toe on the floor, and just notice, did your pelvis want to go that way? Right? Sometimes just your pelvis goes, right? So try to keep that pretty much where it is. Take it forward. Take it off to the side. A little bit of these muscles working now. Take it forward. And then playing either on the floor or off the floor. And forward. And two more. And then bring it back together. Okay, so I'm going to pass it off to Scott. We have Scott's fascinated by the cats playing with each other right now. So hopefully he still has some things to, he won't be too distracted when he starts teaching. But we have Ruthie Cat. I don't know if you can see her. She's here today with Andy, and they are thinking about playing with different golf balls.
All right, so I'd like to continue that thread. And at the outset of class, there's a chat that came in to talk about neck tension. And a really obvious and probably not very helpful way to work about that would be to say, relax your neck. Well, if that was all there was to it, then I think almost all of us would have gotten rid of neck tension years before. So sometimes working with neck tension, it can be helpful to come in kind of unexpected ways. And one of my favorite ways to work with neck tension is paradoxically through the mouth. Now, a lot of times, whether it's yoga or Pilates, we'll hear an instruction to relax the jaw, and that's really helpful. But I find even more helpful is to bring your awareness to the roof of your mouth, the palate. And I know it sounds really strange. The palate is pretty bony, isn't it? You can touch your tongue to it. Relax your palate. And many people report that when they even just think about relaxing their palate, well, there's an ease in the face, the forehead, and even in the neck. So I invite you to bring awareness to your palate and invite your palate to relax. And quite often, when the palate begins to relax, there can be a sense that it goes from narrow into more of a sense of broadening. So let's start off with your feet about hip width apart, arms hanging at your side, and feel your feet on the floor. So that's going to be a continuation of how do we work with balance. Then keeping your feet grounded, rooted. Check in with your palate. Relax the roof of your mouth. Now let's take a few deeper breaths here. And now let's add in a little bit of movement. Step your feet wide apart. Turn both your legs out a bit. And then with the exhale, bend your ankles, your hips, and your knees. And then with the inhale, come up. And we're going to go up and down like that. Exhale, bend. Inhale up. To mobilize your ankles, your hips, and your knees. But one of the other value addeds of this particular movement right here is whether you feel it or not, your pelvic floor muscles yield in the flexion and tone as you come up. We don't have enough time left here to really go into the pelvic floor and its role in core strength and balance. Suffice it to say, as we make this movement, let's do it 2 more times. This can help work with the pelvic floor, whether your pelvic floor is really tight and tense, or maybe the muscles could benefit by having more tone. And then stepping your feet together. So checking in, feeling your feet on the floor, inviting awareness to the roof of your mouth. Invite the roof of your mouth to relax. So an additional layer to balance, besides the great techniques Collette shared with you, is that very often we become overly reliant on our eyes to tell us where our body is. So one way to work with that is to close your eyes. So let's take a look right here. Maybe not take a look, but close your eyes. And many people report that when they close their eyes, they start to rock a little bit. A little bit of a wobble is introduced. So that's indicative that your body is working on your sense of balance. So rather than trying to hold your body rigidly still, move with your body. That little bit of rocking, maybe forward, back, side to side. Now, as you keep the roof of your mouth relaxed, watch what happens to that little side to side rocking movement as you slowly open up your eyes. It steadies out, doesn't it? So what we did right there is we shifted some of the control of balance out of vision and back into your proprioceptive sense and your vestibular sense. So let's continue that exploration. Step your feet wide apart. Turn your left foot in, your right foot out. And then with the exhale, bend that knee, take it straight out toward the side. Inhale, straight. So there's a little bit of mobility work in your hip, knee and ankle. Couple more. The next time your knee in the bent position, pausing there. And then drop awareness down into your feet. See if you can feel your front foot, the ball of the foot contacting floor, your toes contacting the floor, your heel contacting. Now the same thing on your back leg. Ball of your foot, toes, heel. So then to help open up your chest, bring your hands into prayer position. Like your collarbones just broadened, relax your palate into broadening. Then to help work with your balance, close your eyes. And we'll take a few more breaths right here. So using your feet, feel how the weight shifts organically in your feet to stabilize your balance. Everything's working just as it should. And opening up your eyes. Inhale, coming up and turning back toward the front. See, sometimes we'll think that to work on our balance, we have to do a lot of balancing stuff. But sometimes it's just working with the senses. And so a lot of times, our body kind of has forgotten how to balance. And all we need to do is close our eyes to kind of remind the body what it needs to do. Let's take a look at the other side. Turn your right foot in, left foot out. Exhale, bending. Inhale, straightening. A lot of cat action going on this morning. They're pretty savvy. They do most of it off screen. We're still working with their agents. Couple more. Exhale, bending. Inhale, straightening. Bend and hold. So especially those of us who work at a computer a lot, shoulders tend to round forward. So you could either have your hands on your hips to help draw your shoulders back, or join your hands to do the same. And taking a moment to drop awareness down into your feet, left foot, ball, toes, heel, right foot, ball of the foot, toes, heel. Now, as if your mind were in your feet, now to challenge your balance, close your eyes. Now, it's not uncommon that people hold their body up or try and steady themselves by tensing their neck. So remember how we used relaxing the palate as a technique to relax the neck from the inside. A couple more breaths here. Let your body wobble if that's what it's doing. And letting your eyes open. Inhale, coming up, and then turning your feet back toward the middle. So let's do a little bit of whole body movement, not necessarily about balance just now, but just about the joy of moving your body. So begin with a deep inhale. Then with the exhale, take your arms to the side up. And then with the inhale, folding. Here's a chance to mobilize your spine. And knees can bend as much as you'd like. Rest your fingertips on the floor. And let the weight of your head hang to help release your neck. So thankfully, the human head is really quite heavy. Let the weight of your head decompress your neck vertebra. Now, keeping that length in your neck, with the next out breath, reach the crown of your head forward to mobilize between your shoulder blades. And we'll pause here for a few breaths. And then stepping your feet back into yoga pose, head down dog. Let's take 3 deep breaths here. Inhale, fill your back between your shoulder blades. Exhale. Again, like that. Direct the inhale right between your shoulder blades. Again, the whole time letting your head hang. And then with the exhale, step your feet forward. Inhale, folding. And then with the exhale, rolling up. Here's another chance to mobilize your spine. And then with the inhale, bring your arms down. And here we are back in standing. Really tempting to hold your body up with your neck. So balance is going to be precarious. So put your energy down into your feet. Create a solid base, strong foundation. Now, old habits die hard. A lot of us are holding it together with head and neck. So now that you have a base through grounding, through your feet rooted, relax your palate. So rather than your head holding on to your neck, let your neck release its grip on your skull, and your skull release its grip on your neck. So sometimes it almost feels like as I relax my palate, it goes beyond my teeth, out even beyond my cheeks, into a sense of openness. So let's take a quick check-in with your balance by closing your eyes. And notice how the weight organically shifts on your feet. Earlier when you're doing that contralateral work on hands and knees, remember how the weight shifted from one hand to the other hand? This is the nature of balance, is to have little internal micro weight shifts. All right, now opening up your eyes. Let's add a little bit more challenge to that. Step your feet wide apart. Turn your left foot in and then your right foot out. And then with the out breath, bend your right knee, take that knee and thigh out toward the side. Let's pause here for a deep inhale. And then with the exhale, tip your hips, just a little, not too much. Bring hand to knee, hand to hip. And now do you feel how your neck and head are at a diagonal? In this diagonal, relax your palate. In this diagonal, drop awareness into your feet. Right foot, left foot. Now to challenge your balance, close your eyes. Feel how the weight naturally shifts on your feet. And gradually opening up your eyes. Take your right foot. With the inhale, press that right foot down to come up. And then turning back toward the front. Second side, turn your right foot in, left foot out. Collette mentioned I was distracted by cats. So much I forgot to take my slippers off before I came out here to teach. Sorry about that. Exhale, bending. Pausing here for the in-breath. Exhale, tip. Hand to knee, hand to hip. Get that sense of how your torso is diagonal, as is neck and head. So part of the benefit here is what's keeping your head lined up are you're working your neck muscles. They have to work, otherwise your head falls off. So now one of the most useful skills for releasing the neck is to practice keeping your neck muscles relaxed while they're working. So we use the same technique. Rather than focusing on the outer manifestations of your neck, come in through the inside of your skull. Relax your palate. And practice relaxing from the inside out. So whether or not you immediately feel something happening when you relax your palate, long term it generally has a good effect. To help deepen that effect, drop into your feet, left foot, right foot. And then to challenge your balance, close your eyes. We tend to become visual dependent as we age. So reminding your body how to use its proprioceptive sense and how to use its vestibular sense. And slowly opening up your eyes. Notice how the balance shifts. That's how visual dependent most of us are. Inhale up, turning back to the front, and stepping your feet together. So some interesting things. When we're younger, we typically are not as visual dependent. We more use our inner ears and body sense to tell the brain where the body is in space. Then as we age, we become more visual dependent. And then our vision ages, kind of like a double whammy. So as you're standing here, feeling your feet, relaxing your palate, closing your eyes. All right, so we sort of turn off the stream of visual input. And then that kind of forces your body to remember, oh yeah, here's how I use inner ear vestibular sense. Here's how I use body awareness proprioceptive sense. So let's take a few more moments here. In a sense, strengthening the muscle of the other contributors to balance. And then slowly opening up your eyes. All right. So we're going to come back to balance here in a moment. Let's now move to the floor, just general all around, mobilizing your body. So begin with the inhale, put it in your back ribs. Exhale, arms to the side, up. Inhale, fold. Exhale, gorilla. Inhale, stepping back. Let's take 3 deep breaths here, head down dog. And then coming down to your knees and out to your belly. And on your belly, have your hands right next to your armpits. And then to decompress your lower back, reach your toes back behind you. And at the same time, reach the crown of your head forward in front of you. And keeping that length in your lower back. With the next exhale, lift your straight legs an inch or so up off the floor. And then now with the next out breath, lift your head and your chest. And we'll take a few breaths here, yoga pose, locust. Just so good for posture. And then coming down, push up to hands and knees. And then back to head down dog. 3 deep breaths here. And next exhale, step your feet forward, what we call gorilla. With the inhale, fold. Exhale, mobilize your spine to come up. Inhale, arms down. All right, so we're going to take a couple techniques here. The forthcoming technique is kind of the summation, if you will, of ways to release some of the adhesions that tend to form in and around the neck area. So they're going to be these sinews that connect one part of the body to the other. So your neck doesn't exist in isolation. It actually, through sinews, is attached to your hand, through your wrist, arm, into your shoulder, chest, up into your neck. We're also going to introduce some work with balance within that framework. So to get the most benefit from here, to release your neck, deep breathing. Stale air out. Fill your back ribs with the in-breath. Feel how your rib cage drops with the out-breath. Lifts and expands with the in-breath. So maintaining that breathing, now step your feet wide apart. Turn your left foot in and then your right foot out. Inhale here. Exhale, bend your knee. Knee stays bent with the in-breath. Expand your rib cage. Exhale, tip your hips. But this time, instead of hand to knee, elbow to knee. Relax your palate. Take your left arm straight up toward the ceiling. And dynamically reach up through those fingertips. Toward the floor, turn your head and neck. Deep breathing. And if you'd like a little bit more challenge with your balance, close your eyes. Come up with the next inhale. And turn back toward the front. Anyone feel, as you turned your head, a little bit of a tug in your arm? That's the connection of neck, chest, shoulder, arm. We'll follow up in a forthcoming session. Turn your right foot in, your left foot out. Deep inhale here. Exhale, bending. Deep inhale here. Exhale, tip, elbow to knee, hand on your hip. So it can always be useful to relax your neck muscles, but most of us, it's a path pretty well explored. So try coming in from the inside of your skull. Relax your palate and explore releasing your neck from the inside. Then to work on the sinew meridian that connects up into the neck, take your right arm straight up, and then toward the floor, turn your head and neck. Deep breathing. And if you'd like to challenge your balance, you could close your eyes. And then with the inhale, come up. Turn back to the front. And step your feet together. Couple of deep breaths here. And we're going to make our way to the floor. Inhale, fill your back ribs. Exhale, arms up. Inhale, folding. Exhale, gorilla. Inhale, stepping back. Couple deep breaths here. And then coming down to your knees. Bring your legs out in front of you. The deep breathing. Let it drop. Rest your mind. All right. So thank you so much for joining us. Any comments or questions in the chat? Doesn't look like it. So really great that you were able to join us here today. We do this each Saturday, offering to our community. So please feel free to share widely with friends, associates, colleagues. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, that red button right beneath the screen. And maybe we'll see you in some of our other sessions. So glad you could join us. And February 6th, coming right up, Collette and I are going to be doing a talk again, and that will be for the community. And we do these periodically, and last time we talked about meditation and how it interfaces with physical practice. And February 6th, we're going to be talking about resilient fitness. So not just fitness for its own sake, but how do we fortify our natural resilience that's already present within us and throughout our whole lifespan. Thanks for joining us.
One question.
Our question came in.
Do the micro movements in the feet kick in when we close our eyes, and can they be strengthened?
Yeah, so question is about the micro movements that occur in the feet upon closing your eyes, and can they be strengthened? And absolutely yes, they can be. And having strong feet is going to help with your posture and your alignment, and also going to help significantly with your balance. And so today was just kind of a little bit of a prelude to how sometimes just simply closing your eyes as you do kind of normal everyday activities will put you more into your feet, and that will start to strengthen your feet in addition to some of the foot exercises that we often cover both in this class and some of the other ones. Great question. Awesome. Bye-bye.